Today we bring you
Reconstructing Spirit Hill. Previously on Reconstructing Spirit Hill. So shortly after the news of our soon-to-be new addition, at one of our doctor's visits, the doctor had recommended that I take it a little bit easy. She insisted that I go on bed rest. I didn't think she was serious at first. I was like, really? They were concerned with the condition that my body was in. It was a confusing time, an emotional time. We were set to go back and touch base with the doctor and see what the next steps were for our family. So after a couple of weeks of bed rest, we were back to work as usual until our next appointment to see how things were going to progress. So we got busy on the house and I tried to take it as easy as possible.
On the house, we finished the insulation of the house and they began doing the drywall. Seeing the drywall go into the house was a major game changer out here because where the house was feeling really small, once the drywall was put into place, it started feeling really big, which it sounds like it should have been the opposite, but I think it's because the drywall really helped shape the rooms and give you an impression of what it was going to look like.
Before you couldn't really quantify space. It was just a big space, so it wasn't really processing. And then whenever the drywall started going up was whenever, as he said, it all started to take shape.
They also began finishing up some exterior touches to the property. The porch roof, which is a wood slat roof, was installed and our porch posts were installed. The original posts of the house were those old 1900 posts, very neatly carved, but Shauna's vision was more of a craftsman style post, so we ended up with the big kind of square 6x6 posts that are actually hollow in the center.
We'll eventually get some rock around the bottom and all of that, but for now, it's clean, it's a nice look.
We also had to begin prepping the house for water. We had electricity run to the house, but we did not have water running to the house. We had two wells. One was out by the road and one was 150 feet away from the house. We decided to go with the one was 150 feet away from the house because it was the only working well at the time, but that required digging a very, very long ditch. We're digging this out with an excavator, and then we're going to come through and we're going to put in some fill, kind of sandy dirt, real clean stuff, and then we'll lay our pipes and lines on top of that, and then we'll put some more clean dirt on top, and then we'll fill it in with the rest.
So Charlie got to play with some equipment.
Yes. Play with some heavy equipment, and I may have gotten a little sidetracked when we rented the equipment, and I went down to the pond for an evening, afternoon, and kind of dug out our pond a little bit, made it a little bigger, fixed the dam in the back. Which is probably going to wash out with the next major storm, but
I hope not. Yeah. We have a car in there.
There is a car in there. From the 1950s, upside down, squished, rusted out.
Very cool, but random.
It needs to come out. This is probably one of the freakiest parts of our entire property.
I'll throw those bones in there, they won't be able to creep you.
We also began painting the interior of the house because
Yeah, that's what I was telling them. I know you would be. Once we put the color on the wall, this really would bring it out.
We hooked up the sprayer, and we assigned Ricky to the task of spraying the inside of the house. So we dressed him up in a spray outfit, and he went around and sprayed the entire house with primer. And then we had to go behind Ricky after the primer had dried and hardened and sand the walls, because when you spray new drywall with primer,
it absorbs it.
It absorbs it, and pieces of the drywall that where the drywallers had sand will start standing up, and you'll kind of get like these speckles. We did a lot of sanding, a lot of painting. It was a lot of dirty work. We gave that to James and Ricky. I mean, I helped, but I supervised.
They did a very good job.
Fun, huh? You're going a little bit. And then we thought it would be a good idea to paint the color of the house on the inside before we put down the hardwood floors, because logically you get less paint on the floors. So we brought the whole family in and let everybody kind of paint their room the color that it was supposed to be.
It looks very cute. It does.
That was kind of a fun
It was
week.
fun. It was cute to see all of the kiddos get to be involved a little bit. I even, for a brief moment, grabbed a paintbrush or a roller and just did like a couple quick things because I felt like I needed to be doing something that I had to get out because of the fumes. But yeah, I think that everybody enjoyed being able to kind of hack away at their own little piece of it. So I don't know, it was cute.
No run. You know where the run is? Okay, you see one of the pink, it's all clobbered up like, let's see, right here, see how it all sticks up?
And then came the floors. So we've finally gotten to that point of our project where we're laying our hardwood floors. And I've never laid hardwood floors until this project. There's always a possibility of having something just a little off. So floors were an issue that Shauna and I went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth on, because there are so many different types of wood for floors. But this was my first time actually laying old yellow pine hardwood floors. And everybody tells you not to put down pine flooring because it dents and it scratches.
And the sap.
Yeah, the sap doesn't hold stain. There's a lot of issues with pine floors, but the house originally had pine floors in it. And what ultimately moved our decision on it was we bought 3,000 square feet of pine wood flooring for $3,000 from a warehouse that was trying to sell off stock because they were moving to a new warehouse and they had it.
That was a
sitting
fantastic deal.
there. It was a fantastic deal because
You can't pass that up.
yeah, we must have ended up with more than 3,000 square feet. It was an
Yeah.
estimated 3,000 square feet because we then turned around and sold the remainder for at least $1,000. So we, for the actual material that went into our floors, we paid about $2,000 in a 2,800 square foot house where we put hardwoods
Throughout the entire space.
throughout the entire space.
Now, we did have to, in addition to that, purchase some of the tools that were required to install the hardwood floor, like the hammer and the nail gun.
We have a floor nailer. You're gonna have to do a lot of banging to get those boards tight, but then when you're ready to go and you have everything set, bam, you gave it a good whack. They're about $185 at Lowe's. Go get yourself one.
But, I mean, that's still really a fantastic deal.
Yeah.
A lot of the hard labor,
Yes,
and James.
Ricky,
And
James, yeah.
Yeah, everybody kind of pitched in and helped.
But then- that was a project. Are they uniform? Do the boards run all the way across the room, flawless, without any lines? Ours are all over the place. We have some boards that go full length. We have some boards that only go a few feet. Some boards that only go a foot. Some boards that go 8 feet. That took us a couple weeks, and I think it was probably towards the end of when we were finishing those hardwood floors that we finally got our gender reveal date.
Yes, we did. So the doctor had lifted had said I could return to work just cautiously and that we would be seen back in a couple of weeks for the gender ultrasound. So we went in this whole time, Charlie and I were solid on not knowing. We were like, we're not gonna find out. We're totally just we don't wanna know, no big deal, until we get into the room, and he totally betrays me. He was like, the lady was like, do you want to know? And I'm like, nope, we're good. And he's like, well, but I mean, maybe. Well, then he completely starts just changing his mind.
I actually saw what the gender was,
But wasn't sure.
So I wanted to know, and
I refused. I said that she could print off what it was and put it in a little white envelope, and then if we wanted to actually know, then we would do it at home with everybody and see how long I can make everybody wait it out. But man,
it was torture. She kept looking around and looking around and looking around, and it was taking very long time to do a gender reveal ultrasound.
The technician generally cannot communicate with you anything that has to do with your diagnoses or any kind of situation that they may be seeing. They can't tell you. They have to then refer all that information to the doctor, and then the doctor has to talk to you. So for us to have already had the flags thrown, so to speak, to then have a technician taking a significant amount of time and extra measurements and just really creating an air and a sense of uneasiness. You could tell that she was trying to be lighthearted, but at the same time you could see there was an underlying, like there was just an environment in that room that was not good.
I thought that maybe the technician was new to her job, and so she was just having a hard time.
I could read it on her that there was something not okay, but she couldn't tell us what, and she was trying to remain positive. So then we had to speak with the doctor every time.
What she explained to us was that there was no amniotic fluid.
Almost none. She said that there was like a small marginal sliver of fluid remaining around the baby, and that she wanted to very closely watch, and that I had to immediately go back on doing nothing bed rest.
She immediately set us up for a follow-up within less than 2 weeks to come back to her. It was pretty much at that point that Shauna and I realized that
this was a bigger thing.
This was a serious situation. We decided to just go ahead and keep the envelope sealed on the gender for a while. It kind of makes it harder
To attach.
Well, you get attached when you know what the gender is. So, I mean, I don't know how you handle a situation like that when it's like, well, maybe this will work, but
we're not extremely hopeful.
Yeah.
So we waited. With unknowns looming, we had to continue and press forward because not knowing what was happening in that element of our personal life, we still had 2 other little ones that were excited, and we needed to keep that momentum and that positivity going and get this house done.
At that point, we really like hit it into overdrive.
Well, I didn't. I stayed.
Yeah, we finished the floor within a couple days of that get together, and then I went ahead and interviewed and ordered a floor finisher to come out and finish the floors. So at this point, we didn't have any trim. We didn't have a lot of the things done in the house that you would want to have done before you finish the floors. So we had scheduled that out for a couple of weeks, but that only gave us a couple of weeks to get all of that work done. So we got to work. We've been working on this house for 88 weeks. That's almost 2 entire years. So at this point, we're just pushing as hard as we can to get this house to a CO. One of the projects that we had to get done was these chimney hearths, the old brick hearths. Yeah, these chimney hearths. The old brick was falling apart. They were kind of falling out, and the hearth is below us. That was definitely cracked apart. So I started taking that stuff apart. We gotta dig into this, pull this brick up, and we want to try and use some of the antique brick. We have a lot. And then, and when I did that, I found some pretty interesting things inside, which.
Oh, yeah.
There is something under here. I'm kind of afraid to reach my hand down there. It looks like. I don't know what that is. It's fabric.
Like burnt clothes and things like.
Burnt fabric. It was buried in the fireplace. It's a little creepy. Like somebody was hiding evidence underneath the hearth.
Stop.
Okay. I worked on basically restoring all the chimneys in the house. So I'm not quite sure how this is going to come out yet. Okay, Benjamin, Daddy's adding more glue to the craggle. Can you stir it? Try and give it a stir. What we we have going on this weekend, it's Memorial Day weekend, and we have a lot of trim work that has to be done. We need to start trimming out the windows, start hanging doors, just about everything. Stairs has to be trimmed out, and I've got the flooring guys scheduled to be here Monday. So we really just have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to really bust butt and try and get this thing done. So all the doors in this house are original doors. They're about 100 years old. They're very quirky doors. We had saved all the hardwood doors, or the old Heart of Pine Bible cross doors. And where we fell short of doors, we went to antique stores and found old doors.
And we only ended up needing to get like 3 or 4, right?
Yeah. Shauna was going to refinish the doors, which she had started on. But because she was on bed rest and couldn't be breathing in chemicals and other things, the doors never got refinished. So we ended up just carrying the doors over to the house and
Hung them as is.
we hung them as is.
Well, from the time I'd stopped working on them.
We really have to put our brains together here and figure out how to hang these old doors. I mean, they're beautiful, beautiful old doors. The problem is that I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Ricky doesn't know what he's doing. We didn't know anything about what to do with the trim of the house, with hanging the doors, but it was a project that we knew we had to take on for on ourselves. Due to the expenses.
Yeah, the quote we'd received to get the work done, which the handiwork would have been impeccable, but it was just, we just couldn't. We couldn't afford it.
It was over $19,000. We decided to do the work ourselves. We've got to learn how to hang doors, and then we've got to do our trim. This weekend we've decided to call in the teacher.
The teacher.
The teacher, yeah.
4 8-foot, and we need 2 1 by 6 by 10 foot.
First time I ever heard my dad referred to as the teacher, it just cracked me up. I remember going to his office in Charlotte, and I was meeting with some of his colleagues. They were joking with me, and they were like, we always call your dad the teacher because your dad likes to teach. He knows so much, he has so much knowledge, he comes into a situation, and he has a great way of explaining things to everybody.
But we're not going to get it to line up perfectly, so you don't try. Set it off about an 1/8.
Now we should do the other side of this as well, just before we go over the top. Okay.
Now let's do the
Yeah,
other
let's
side.
do the other side, same
We'll nail the
same
face.
drill.
Nail the face.
Where you want to go. Figure which one the green's going, go with it. Yeah, see, that's how it's going to look. Yep. That's good, beautiful. So should we come in
All the way, that's right, all the way over.
That's really good.
Yeah, it'll come on, and it'll come with a crack.
Yep. Good.
Yep.
Thank you.
But what's funny is he is actually a professor now for one of the Ohio State colleges.
Now, what happens up there? We're going to 45 or just cut it off flush?
You know, this really should be sitting in the middle of it. Well, wait a minute. We do that. Now, sit that much out, that's too much.
The most important aspect to doing trim work is having a design in mind and knowing how you're going to implement it. Because we're dealing with such an old house, the depth isn't the same as your standard 2x4. It's one of those things where somebody said, hey, if we take the 2x4 and we shave it down, we can get more wood on the truck. So you don't actually have a real 2x4. We have 2x4s that are true cut 2x4s. We're not going to get the width or the depth. If I were to buy a standard trim piece for this wall, number one, it would only be a 1/2 inch wide. It just looks junky to have 1/2 inch trim instead of, a full 3/4. It just wasn't gonna work.
We looked at the pictures that we had taken from the original home and tried to recreate it. Between that and then a couple of other pictures I found on Pinterest, I think it was, I was sending him ideas and saying, okay, mix this with this.
It's much fancier, it's much nicer, it has to be done correctly.
But make it look like this,
And you have to be able to think your way through these things. The trim is a lot trickier than just putting together an order form and shipping it out to the stockyard.
He took that with his dad and went to
Lowe's
and started building out trim.
And when I say building it out, I mean we actually built it in the store. Every time I came back to an aisle with something else, my dad had more of the doorway done. Pulled out pieces of trim and started fitting them together in the Lowe's aisle. Every now and then we get a Lowe's worker to come out and contribute their thoughts to it. Lowe's is a very great place. You can just set up shop right in the middle of the aisle. They don't
They've
care.
been a great help to us.
Lowe's has been huge. Our game plan is to head back to the house and immediately trim out the stairs because we've got the flooring guys who called and said they want to start early, which I am absolutely fine with them starting early. They're going to be installing our stair treads and our risers. The stairs are almost impossible to trim out. I mean, there are so many angles. You would think that you could just line the boards up and have a couple cuts at the top, a couple cuts at the bottom, but nothing's working out the way we want it to.
About as close as we're gonna get.
We have to keep thinking through the process.
And then what we'll do is we'll cut this one up to do the stuff at the bottom.
Yeah. Not a total loss.
No. You notice it bound up a little bit?
Yeah.
I just shaved a little off the waste board and freed it up.
We had picked up our stair treads. Our stair treads are absolutely beautiful. We had searched out some harder pine steps.
Oh, they're beautiful.
And we had to have them custom made. But we did, with the pine floors, we needed a matching wood. Harder pine, being pine itself, was the closest we could get. The wood itself dates back to about the age of the house, and it's super hard. It's harder than oak. So for stair treads, it's amazing. We had a few issues with the steps because when we ordered the treads, they asked me for the rough-in size. So I gave them a measurement of the rough-in size of each tread going up the stairs. Measured the rough-in and they made the treads the size of the rough-in, which doesn't make any sense. The steps are only 9.5 inches deep. And we're sitting there looking at this going, oh my gosh, it took us a week to get these stairs made. And here we are bulldogging it into the project and we've got the wrong stair treads. I have guys out there ready to install the stair treads and it's just a complete mess. Looking at my dad and looking at the guys going, all right, let's just get these treads back in the car. The owner of the mill where we ordered the treads was going to be there for another hour. I had to get to Pittsburgh to see what I could do about the treads. So I ran back to the mill and luckily he had some treads, all but one. Mistakes are made in projects like these, but what's great about working with a local mill or, I guess particularly this company is that they were able to kind of steal from some other orders and, they'll make it up on their end and it keeps us in production mode. So very pleased. We got our steps and I am heading back to the project. So I make it back from Pittsburgh with the new treads and the flooring guys are gone. At this point, the day's running out. We're running out of time. At the end of the day, we didn't get a whole lot accomplished. So Sunday rolls around and at this point we're on Sunday and we've gotten very little trim work done. We've got James kind of busting butt on the chimney hearths, and let me tell you, James is a Raphael, a Donatello. He's a true Da Vinci. there, measuring out each and every brick, trying to place them perfectly in the hearth. He's doing a beautiful job. You look hilarious, James.
I'm not worried about it.
Look like you got a tan, bud.
It's 120.
At this point, we haven't gotten very much trim work done at all. We've gotten a couple doors hung, and we're way behind this. It's kind of like freak out mode for me at this point. We have to get so much of this trim work done for me to stay on schedule. We're all running around kind of doing our own thing. A lot of chaos, a lot of mistakes. For me, this is good because we're actually in like production mode. And everybody has a job and a task, and everybody's skilled at what they're doing because they're doing it repetitively. That's when you get into production mode, and that's what you need on a job site like this. Sunday night, we're out of time, we're out of daylight, and we just kind of have to call it quits because there's nothing else we could do at this point. We didn't get nearly as much done as we wanted to. It is what it is. The house isn't cleaned up. The floor guys are coming first thing in the morning.
Well, it is Sunday morning and we've literally got right now just a couple hours before the floor guys get here. But once they start flooring, we're pretty much out of the game for, you know, about a week. We'll see how this goes.
Here.
So while they were staining our floors, we had to go back to this follow-up appointment to learn more or see if, you know, hopefully things had improved with the situation that we were dealing with.
So that led us to another ultrasound.
So the night before we went into the ultrasound, we really kind of talked ourselves up and gave ourselves some confidence, and we decided to open that gender envelope.
Yeah.
We were confident that everything was going to work out fine. It was no big deal.
No matter what.
Yeah. We opened the envelope. We went ahead and made the connection. It was the boy, which we were excited about.
Yeah.
And we told the kids about it. And so that was a very happy moment. And then comes the ultrasound.
It's very ominous to know that you're walking into the room, and so now that you're aware of the situation, potential, the issue, when you know what you're looking for, you're analyzing every tidbit of the screen, and we could tell that it had not improved from the last one that we'd seen. So really not knowing really what happens after that, whoever talks about, nobody talks about that. The waiting from that, it was like, what, 15 minutes, and it felt like an eternity. Waiting for the ultrasound, it felt like forever. And I started crying in the hallway waiting area because I was just like...
I was just trying to stick to the positive aspects that we had the night before and just focus on the fact that nobody had said anything bad yet.
She was very sweet, and she was as kind as she could be. As kind as someone can be when they tell you that you don't have a potential positive. Her suspicion was that my water had broken somewhere between 17. She wanted a more experienced professional to take a look at it because, like, who wants to give that news? She just said that it wasn't good, and she was trying to be as delicate as possible while still giving us a blow that could potentially end the pregnancy. But she referred us to a specialist because she wanted a professional opinion.
And they scheduled that visit with that specialist
The next day.
The next day we went again to a specialist at a university hospital. They ran some more tests, and then we sat in another waiting room waiting for that doctor to approach us. Well, that doctor was very professional. She was very blunt about the situation that we were dealing with.
They had determined that my water had broken somewhere between 17 and 19 weeks. And that because of that, while the baby seemed perfect at that moment in time, there was no space for him to grow and no way for him to develop as far as like lungs and things like that.
She really didn't give us much more than a 4% chance that the baby would survive through the week. But if the baby did survive and the baby was born, that the baby would be born without lungs and wasn't viable, the chances of everything working out hunky-dory were like a fraction of a percent. Just from the situation that was going on, there were severe risks to Shauna and the baby. Those risks were extremely elevated. They felt like time was very short. I think we both tried to prepare ourselves for whatever they threw at us, but I was not as prepared as I thought I was. The feelings and emotions that I began running through as she was talking were very painful. But then to look at Shauna as a mom and try and analyze her feelings was just absolutely heartbreaking to me.
So the specialist gave us options. Recommendation was to induce and abort. She had stated that because of what was going on, my body would naturally begin that process anyway, and so it was safer if I was in the confines of a hospital. There was a little bit of time for us to go home and think about it if we wanted to think about what to do. Or we could try to continue and just see what happens. That was not a recommendation, but that was an option.
Shauna had looked at me and she asked me, what should we do in this situation? And I just remember sitting there and going through, trying to process the information that we were just given, because it was unreal. It was very compelling. I had been in a lot of horrible situations, impossible situations in the past, but at least I had a glimmer of hope to hang on to. And this was a situation where I didn't see any alternative to what we had been told. So I didn't know how to answer, and I don't know how long we sat there for. My thought process was a very lengthy one in a short period of time because I did not know how to answer that question. So I just, at that point in time, opened my heart up to God because there is absolutely no other direction that I knew how to go. The thought that came to me was that we needed to reflect on what we had learned, but go home and make the decision to pray about it and carry on. One thing that was clear, that was true to me at that moment in time, was that the baby himself had perfect vitals. He didn't know about all these other things, these arguments that were against him that were going on. And that was a clear sign to me. The right direction at that particular moment was to turn to prayer. I felt at that time a sense of relief because of the clarity that I was feeling. I think that in any time when you turn to God to pray about things, something that I have learned over the years is that when you pray about things, you cannot expect a particular outcome. I did not know what that meant. I didn't know why we were being led through this. At this point in time, we were beaten down. We had lost our entire life savings trying to put the house together. We had been in a mad rush trying to get Shauna out of the camper because we had to move our entire family into a camper. It was a very, very difficult time. But I just knew, regardless of every argument that had been thrown at us and every reason there possibly could have been to give up, that we needed to hold on to prayer.
Thoughts that go through your mind when you get that kind of information. Are you selfish for wanting to hang on to that child? Are you selfish for not wanting to have a child that goes through something horrific like what they explained to you? That is a tough spot to be placed in, to where you almost feel like you're having to play God. And we chose not to play God. We let him do it. So we went home and prayed.